in all actuality, like I always put other people before me, and it was like very detrimental to who I was. And now I am prioritizing myself, and I'm so much happier.
What's something that you're deeply grateful for?
There's so many things I'm incredibly grateful for. I mean, I'm blessed to have, this rebirth of life. I call myself Victoria 2.0 sometimes after the brain tumor and all the radiation, because I've had this like new perspective on life, and I'm grateful to have this like second opportunity to live and live even greater than I was living before.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, a podcast about growth, mindset, and entrepreneurship. I'm Moshe Popack, and today we have an inspirational story from Victoria Vesce. Victoria is a model, social media influencer, former NBA and NHL dancer, and perhaps most importantly, a brain tumor survivor. She'll share her inspiring story of courage and grit and how that battle has changed her mindset forever. Plus, she'll tell us why it's so important to travel, especially if you do it alone. Before we start the show, just a quick ask. If you enjoy Common Denominator, we'd be grateful if you'd subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps promote the show, and it helps us get great guests. Thanks so much, and now here's my conversation with Victoria. Hi, Victoria, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So I love the fact that it's super important for you to travel.
Yeah.
You talk about it a lot, and you've traveled extensively. How many countries have you traveled to?
So far, I have done 31 countries. My goal at the end of this year is to hit 50. So my parents traveled all over the world, so I'm like trying to emulate them with my travel. And in the past year, I've traveled to like 20 countries. So a bulk of those I've traveled in the past year.
Wow. So what were your parents? They were that was for work, or they were?
Yeah, both my parents. My mom passed away, unfortunately, 2.5 years ago. But my mom and my dad worked together. They're entrepreneurs. They built a crazy, amazing business and worked together. And I just watching my dad like build something from the ground up, and then my mom coming in and helping him. It's just such a wholesome like experience. And even as kids, like my brother and I would like work in the office, and they did a lot of international like business transactions. So we would travel with them when we were younger and kind of just watch the whole process. It was fun as a kid.
Really, no, because we always have the debate. Our main business is real estate, and bunch of years ago, my wife was seeing that, it was getting, things were growing, and she would need to step in. And the first year was really tough to divide up, the responsibility. So looking back at like your parents and how they operate, do you think that that's a good idea, that husband and wife can separate business, or was it all just kind of intertwined into your lifestyle?
I feel like both. My mom and my dad both have separate things that they were going on, but at the end of the day, it would come together and work as one, which I really love that. And like when I'm looking for my future spouse and partner, I want to be able to do the same thing my mom and dad did, like work together and build like an empire together. So just watching that as a kid, like really taught me like what I like would value in a relationship. But I respect them because they both had their own things going on. My mom and dad would have their own respective things that they like to do and would go like do separately. But at the end of the day, like any kind of business stuff they would end up doing together. And I really enjoyed watching them thrive throughout the years because they were together up until the end. So
that's beautiful. I think that's also a very important point for, I'm married next month, 19 years, and I'm like, that's a very, very important point. What I realized is that we're similar in certain ways, but, so we have our things that we do separately and the things that we come together. Like right now before the show, we'd have our daily kind of one-on-one strategy because we have 11 kids, dealing with the kids, right, which is nuts. And then we have a few hundred employees as well, and the company and things like that. So to hear that was successful, that's really nice. when you travel, I know you like to travel solo, right?
Yeah.
Which is a thing. I think that also makes for someone that's very strong in who they are. What's the reasoning for traveling solo?
Well, after I got diagnosed with my brain tumor, I went through all of that. It just gave me a new perspective on life. Like, the only thing I could think of, like, laying in a hospital bed, not being able to move, was like, I haven't seen the world. So that was like step one of my, like, I want to travel process. And then I just never really, after that, I went to law school, so I never really acted upon it. And then when my mom passed away, just suddenly, actually from COVID, it was like the last wave of it. My mom was my best friend, and we had planned to do so much together. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not waiting any longer. Like, enough with the waiting. I'm going to go travel. It's kind of almost like my eat, pray, love kind of deal, was just healing my heart, because I, like, lost my soulmate, which was my mom. And then obviously I'm still been somewhat healing from the brain tumor process. I mean, it's a lingering thing, especially since I'm deaf in my right ear. But just traveling just giving me this whole new perspective on life. You see how beautiful the earth is created. I was in Ha Long Bay in Vietnam, just looking at all these, like, crazy rock formations. And then I'm in Jamaica at the waterfalls. I'm in St. Lucia just swimming in the water. And you just realize, like, the beauty of life, because I've seen so much, like, trauma and tragedy happen in just my life alone. And then you see it in the world around you when you turn on the news. It's just nice to get a fresh perspective on the world. And so that has really brought joy and peace to my life, has been traveling. And I'll go with friends sometimes, but I really have been enjoying going solo, because it's just kind of like really reaching deep inside of me and figuring out who I am as a person. Even though I'm 31 now, I still, there's still a lot to learn. Like, you never stop learning about yourself. And especially I'm still in this, like, grieving, healing process of trying to find out who I am now with, like, a lot of my family gone. So traveling has just really shaped a whole new perspective for me and gave me a whole new appreciation for life.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite place you've been to?
Whew, that's so hard. I talk about Sri Lanka a lot, and I helped out with the Elephant Freedom Project. So it talks a lot about elephant tourism and the negative effects of that on elephants. And I love elephants so much. I remember going in there, and I was helping them out when I was with the elephants, and I was just crying. It was just such a surreal experience, and just learning about what they're doing to combat, like, the elephant tourism, especially in the Asian countries where people are riding elephants and it's so bad. I really just enjoyed that whole experience. And now I feel like when I travel, I'll try to find something, like, a way to give back, whether it's, like, working with an animal shelter or doing another elephant sanctuary or learning more about animals. I just love animals. Or finding a way just to help that local community anytime I go to a different country has been really, like, special and important to me.
I know for me, I went on this journey maybe about 13 years ago or so, where I constantly needed to be around other people. It was hard for me to be in my own space and be alone. So when I heard your story about that you're not only just being by yourself, you're going to restaurants, going to places just all by yourself, just to experience, that's a very, for your age, that's pretty advanced. What were you like that when you were younger? Like, you wanted the time alone, or is it something that happened later?
I have to say, this is a whole new phenomenon for me. I like to classify. I don't want to say I like to classify, but if I had to classify myself as an attachment style, I would definitely be anxious attachment most of the time. Where I do have this, like, need to just be around people a lot and, like, talk to someone, and I just found that was really just not helping me at all holistically. Like, it's nice. I do think it's better, living life better together kind of whole ordeal. But if you're not comfortable with by yourself and who you are by yourself and being able to be by yourself, then it just, your whole alignment messes up. So I was in this, like, state of just anxiety, just always having to be around someone. If I was alone, like, I couldn't be by myself. And so I'm one of those people, I'm going to, like, jump all the way in if I'm going to be by myself. So or if I'm going to do something, I'm going to jump all the way in. So what did I do? I just went to another country by myself. And then I was like, okay, it's going to be kind of hard to talk to people. It's going to be kind of hard to talk to friends. Like, I have to be comfortable in who I am in a whole different country. And even growing up, I always had to have, like, someone around with me. I was very shy growing up. I wouldn't, like, talk to anyone. I would only I grew up on a farm, so I grew up on a buffalo farm. And I just loved the farm life, but that was just, like, my little sanctuary oasis, and I was super shy. So it was really hard for me just to get out and, like, be the best version of myself, because I was so, like, inwardly, like, scared to show who I really was, especially growing up in a small town. So going through all that, and then becoming, like, more of an extrovert as time went on, and then I was just always in social situations, like being on the NBA dance team or, like, modeling. Like, you're always just around people, so I kind of got a little used to that. And then when tragedy struck me, like with my brain tumor, and then the trauma of, like, losing my mom and losing my grandparents, like, all simultaneously, it was just a lot. I just had this, like, need to be around people, and I saw how, I firmly believe anything in too much of an extreme is a bad thing. Like, you don't want to be by yourself all the time. You don't want to be around people all the time. You got to find this, like, happy medium. And that's what I was lacking for myself, because I was just always around people and I couldn't be by myself. So I just found the love, found the passion for travel. And then I'm like, I need to do this by myself. I need to find out who I am by myself without anything familiar around me. I think, like, having this, like, unfamiliar environment where you're kind of learning the environment and learning yourself and how to navigate things just really brought just such an inner peace to my life. So, if I had any advice to give to someone who is, like, struggling with being by themselves, it's just kind of like, dive right in. Like, you just kind of have to, like, jump into the fire of just being by yourself, or you're just never going to do it. Because that was me. I was like, I'm just going to book this trip and go. And I'm not going to tell myself no. And that's how I've, like, learned to love solo travel, because it's just learning about myself and being comfortable in who I am, and really, like, understanding, like, okay, I'm processing this trauma in my life this certain way because of this, or this is a trigger to me. Like, I've been finding out things about myself I didn't really know for the longest time. And so I have this piece of just being by myself now. I love to, like, I tell my friends, I'm like, okay, I just need to decompress for, a bit and just be by myself. And now my friends respect that. They don't see that as, like, a thing where it's like, oh, she doesn't want to talk to us. Like, kind of it's being selfish, but it's being selfish in a way where you're really honoring yourself and realizing, your body, your mind is a temple, and you got to really treat it and nourish it properly. And that means sometimes you got to be comfortable being by yourself.
I'm a big believer, and I tell my kids, my oldest is 18, and I tell them, you have to journey alone. You have to know yourself. And that person, whoever it is, they have to know themselves. And when you come together, that's the healthiest way. You shouldn't have this codependence on each other.
I had a lot of codependence in relationships before, and other people, and I really was seeking validation through other people's opinions of me. It's almost like being that people pleaser, and I started to realize, like, I hate this. Like, I just want to be myself. Like, I want to be like, okay, I like what I'm wearing. I like what I don't need to have any external validation to be who I am. And I've had quite a few toxic relationships, unfortunately, but it's taught me, like, a lot, and it's taught me that, like, that codependency can be so real and it can be so toxic. And that's why especially in this, like, healing time of my grief, which grief is, for me, is, people have a lot of thoughts about grief, but in my opinion, it's never ending. It's just how you manage it. And I was managing it completely wrong, having that attachment, having that validation from everyone. And I could see myself just not being who Victoria is and was anymore. So really finding that balance, and just healing myself and putting myself as a priority. And I thought that was a bad thing, like putting yourself at, like, a priority level over anyone else. It's not. At the end of the day, we have to prioritize ourselves, because who else would want to? Like, you can't expect other people to prioritize you and put you number one on their list. So you always have to be like, okay, at the end of the day, like, again, I keep saying, like, you kind of want to be a little selfish. You kind of want to think about yourself and think about, how you're healing and how you're going throughout your day and what makes you happy, what makes you sad, and just think about yourself in those external situations. And so that's something I've been really doing, is prioritizing me. And I'm telling you what, I've been the happiest I've ever been, which is wild. And people probably think that, they can look on my Instagram, they can look on oh, she's full of herself. Like, I get comments like that sometimes. Or they're like, oh, yeah, we can tell you think you're like hot shit, whatever. But in all actuality, like, I always put other people before me, and it was like very detrimental to who I was. And now I am prioritizing myself, and I'm so much happier. And I can tell, like, my energy when I get around my friends. They're like, something about you is just radiating sunshine. That's what a lot of my friends say. They're like, you just feel like sunshine now. Like, you make me so happy just to be around you. So I'm like, I love that. So once you start prioritizing yourself and really, like, healing yourself, not in a conceited way, just in a holistic, like, healthy way, then everyone else around you kind of gravitates to you. And I've seen that, like, firsthand, like, not like within the past month, how life has changed once I started really realizing my worth and who I am without the external validation.
I'll tell you something, and I've said this before on the show, and it was something that I struggled with for a long time. Oprah Winfrey, she said for 30 years, men, women, and children interviewing, she said the common denominator of everybody, of humans, is the need for validation. After the show, they always ask, oh, how did I do, or how's this? And then I realized, I said, what is the true freedom? And I'm still far from perfect, but, if you can express your truth, who you are, what's inside is what's outside, and then, yes, maybe people will fall away, and then but at least you'll have a chance in one life that you have. At least you have a chance to be around, right? People that don't judge, right? And that see you for who you are, and they actually want to be around you. Yeah. Otherwise, you're sitting there speaking falsities, and then how are they? They're a third party. They're busy with their life. How are they supposed to know anything? Yeah. Right? So I commend you on that. That's extremely hard work, is consciously walking away from the need for validation, right? That is, if I give one advice of, like, because then you harness all your energy. Your energy is not going all over the place. Your energy is here centered, and then you can give that when you choose to people that you care about.
Yeah, that is so
right?
true.
So I'm very familiar with it, and you should be proud of yourself on that one. That's tough. That's tough, and you've taken the action by time and time again traveling alone and doing what it is. But I want to go back to 2017. 23 years old, and you get a diagnosis or a misdiagnosis, right? I mean, tell us the story about your brain tumor.
Yeah. Well, I was 23. Living my best life. I always say, like, back then I had the Midas touch. Like, anything I would do, it just turned to gold. I feel like I was kind of getting, like, everything I ever wanted. I was on this extreme high of life. I was an NBA dancer for the Charlotte Hornets. I just came back from the Rio 2016 Olympics with the NBA. I was in Shanghai with Michael Jordan. Like, I was just I was literally living the dream. And during that time, I was applying to law school because I knew that was something I wanted to do. And I just started getting sick out of nowhere, honestly. I remember I worked out a lot. I was very healthy, like peak of my fitness level. I was running like 7 miles a day. I was crazy. And I just was slowly fading. And my hearing, which was like the first symptom I really noticed, was going away. And my ear was like bleeding. It was like little things were just like adding up. And of course, someone who's extremely healthy, my mind's not going to go to like, oh, I have a tumor. And I did not MD anything. So I would just go to the doctor and they would be like, oh, you have an ear infection. So it was like ear infection for months on end. Probably like 7 months of misdiagnoses of an ear infection. Like, you're fine. You're just making this all up. It's in your head. Like, literally, it was in my head. But I felt like I was getting... talking about validation, I feel like I was feeling invalidated when I was coming to my health, because I was like, I know there's something wrong, but like the doctors keep telling me like it's fine. And finally I was very persistent. My mom was luckily at that time was still alive, and she used to be a nurse before she had my brother and I, and she was like, yeah, there's something up with you. My blood pressure was dropping. I was very low. I was sleeping a lot. I would have fainting spells, and everyone's just like, something's off with you, Victoria. And finally was very persistent with doctors, and finally got a hearing test, because everyone thought I was lying that I was losing my hearing, and finally got a hearing test, and they found through the hearing test there was neurological damage, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And I got a CAT scan immediately after, and I remember I was in Raleigh at that time because my mom was kind of helping me out with the doctors and everything, and I was driving back to Charlotte. It's like a 2.5-hour drive because I had to make practice that evening, and I get a call. My dog's like in her little car seat in the back, and driving back to my place in Charlotte, and I get the call like, hey, are you sitting down? I was like, yeah, I'm driving. And they tell me, they're like, hey, in your CAT scan we found, a sizable tumor, but it's very rare. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. We have to refer you out. And they're like, we advise you not to do anything. So I was driving, and I'm like, I like gripping my steering wheel, like such a traumatic thing after being like on this high of life. Like, had like games coming up, like things with friends, and it's just all of a sudden I had to like just cut everything out. And I didn't talk to anyone about it, really. I remember just calling my coach up at the time and being like, hey, I got this really bad diagnosis, and I don't really know what's going to happen. So I just kind of reclused back into this little hole of mine while I waited 3 weeks to get that referral, because it was very rare, and I had to have a specific doctor at Duke. And that was a very dark time. I'm 23 years old, saying I have like a brain skull tumor growing that's pretty sizable. Who knows? I didn't know if it was spreading, and unfortunately, I found out later it was. And I just didn't know what was going to happen to me, and it was just crazy. I was looking at my dog, I remember, and thinking, I'm like, man, you might outlive me at this point. Like, who knows? I don't know. I'm like, am I ever going to get married? There's just so many thoughts in my head. It was just very dark time, and I tried to do anything just to get my mind off of it, but I would always just go back into those dark thoughts, and it was hard. Luckily, like, I have an amazing family, and they really helped me through it, but honestly, no one in my family had ever gone through that. So I was just like, it was a very new experience for everyone, and then new for me, and I'm trying to find people to connect with. Couldn't find anyone with a similar tumor. So it was just like crazy. So I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I don't have like a success story to look at the moment. And finally, when I went to Duke and they kind of told me everything, I actually was part of an experimental study because I was so young and healthy, other than the tumor. They were like, can you be part of this experimental study with this new radiation process, which was the pinpoint radiation, instead of having to radiate my whole skull? And I was like, yeah, let's try, I don't know why. I was just like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And so I went through this whole experimental process, went through the whole surgery, like, it was insane. And then finding out on my 24th birthday that it was spreading into my neck, and it was in my carotid artery, and they're like, we got it. It was go time. And meanwhile, during that time, I'm trying to apply to law schools, and like I only got to 2, and I just had to like stop and just focus on my health. And it was just a really crazy month of just, okay, you have this tumor, please be a part of this experimental study. You're going to have a radiation treatment. You could have a stroke. You could die. We don't really know what's going to happen. Like, it's all so many, like, unknown variables, and I'm just sitting there, like, I don't know how to process this. And I remember I didn't cry at all up until I found out, like, the week of my 24th birthday that it was spreading into my neck, and I was just like, wow, this is really, I thought this was, like, just a nightmare.
So when that happened, when they said, so then the process was that they would do radiation. That was, in other words, up to that point, that was the experimental radiation, and you didn't know what was going to happen. And I mean, with the way I'm a lay person, but the way I understand brain tumors, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Right. It's pretty complicated. Right. So there's a lot of things that could have happened. Obviously, you're sitting here today. So are you better? Like, at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 7 years now. It's crazy to think about it since everything, like the surgery happened, and I'm a lot better. It was just very traumatic, this 23, 24-year-old at the time going through all of that, and it was a really hefty surgery. Like, coming out, I couldn't, like I said earlier, I ran 7 miles a day prior to then. I couldn't even walk. I could barely walk one stair. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. A lot of people don't know this, but like there was a period of time I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. I had an infection coming out of my scar. Like I felt like not even human anymore. I didn't feel like Victoria, and it was very, very dark. And I just remember the only thing that got me through it is I'm going to beat it. Like I keep telling myself every morning, I'm like, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to tell this tumor who's who. Like I can't have this be my life. I'm not going to be like a vegetable sitting in the bed. I remember they brought me home with like, I felt like a opiate cabinet of like things to take. And I was like, I refuse. Like I'm going to heal this like on my own. I didn't take any of those like oh gosh, I forget all the stuff they had. Like I was literally like a pharmacy walking around that they gave me when I came home. Do you know, hey, here's this painkiller, here's this other painkiller, and I'm like, you know what? Nope, I'm gonna just bite through the pain and really get over this myself. And that was like my mentality. I was like, I'm gonna take one step every day till I can hit the top of the staircase. So it took a lot. And finally, when I could bathe myself on my own, I started feeling like a human. But I remember I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. My mom would have to help me. My mom would have to bathe me. It was like I was a toddler again. It was really traumatic from being on such a high. Like I literally had just come back from the Rio 2016 Olympics with the NBA to not being able to go to the bathroom by myself or being able to get up without someone helping me. It was a very stark difference in my life. And then having to go through, once you heal, that's when they do the radiation. So then they told me it was only going to be like 5 rounds or something. It ended up being like 32.
And I'll tell you something. And we've had many guests, and I repeat this every time I hear. And I feel right now you're like on the second mountain. Basically, right. So we all have that. And I had a guest the other week. And he's done maybe 800 episodes of his podcast. And he said, you know, and that's the whole thing of the podcast. If we can tell people, right, by the way, okay, you're on this high, right? Mm-hmm. You're flying, everything's cool, right? The way life works is that there's going to be a rock bottom moment. There's going to be a situation. And then, who knows, maybe you'll end up under the bridge. Or maybe you'll change who you are, because life will keep teaching you that lesson. Mm-hmm. And then you get to this. When we're talking now and I'm thinking, it's like the fact, again, no need for validation, no, traveling alone. And you took it step by step by step and not taking any of the drugs. It's the next stage you're at now. And, that's a story. Because for me, I had my own health stuff, and I'm a couple months from that now, and that's where I am, complete clarity. I see things completely differently. So I relate to that. I understand that, and you just, all those small things, all those things don't matter anymore. You really don't care, no matter what anybody says, right? It's just like you know who you are, and you're just going to do what you're going to do. Yeah. Right.
I think to myself, I'm like, okay, yeah, your words or your keyboard warriorness hurts, but honestly, a brain tumor hurts worse. So I'm like, right. I've already been through like some really dark times, and I've come out of it, and I've become victorious. I always tell myself, I don't want to have this victim mentality. I think a lot of people have a victim mentality these days. They really like love to tell their story to get the the sad, the appeal to the sadness, and we see that. And I don't want, when I tell my story over and over again, I don't want that. I'm telling my story to show like you can come from a situation and become victorious. I mean, my name is Victoria, so I like to really tell everyone I don't like to perpetuate a victim mentality. I like to perpetuate a Victoria mentality to show that you can get over everything. I mean, every situation you have, whether it's health scare or maybe a financial burden or just feel like your life is not moving in the right direction, you have the opportunity to change that. You do. Every one of us has the opportunity to turn it around or to go in a different direction. You just really have to take that risk and do it. And I'm all about taking risks these days, and it's really been beneficial just for me.
I don't even think of it as risk anymore.
Yeah.
I see it just as clarity, your path. You follow your path, or the universe will make sure you're on your path.
That's true.
Over and over. other people, what advice would you give to other people that are going through what you went through and they're scared?
Yeah. I would just say tune out the outside noise. You at the end of the day, we all know ourselves the best. The doctor can say whatever, your family, your friends can say whatever, but at the end of the day, you know who you are and you know how you're feeling. And that was like one thing for me when I felt like, hey, my body is off. They keep telling me it's something different, but it doesn't feel like that. And I knew deep down there was something more than just an ear infection. It ended up being multiple tumors. And me keeping on that hunch kept me alive today, because who knows what would have happened if I just kind of just let it fly and keep doing the same treatments and just listen to what everybody else had to say. Like, I may not even be here, or I could be a shell of who I am. So really, truly listening to yourself and tuning out the outside noise is like one of my number one, like, you must do. And even tuning out the outside noise to heal from just any kind of trauma, really, because and really removing that validation need. I think it's good to connect with other people who have gone through similar experiences, because I have to say, like, I was taken in by the National Brain Tumor Society when I was a patient going through everything, and it really helped being in a community of people who are going through the same thing, or like if a community of like-minded people. It's always a good thing. Like, I love going to church on Sundays. It helps me, just it's one of my happy places is going to church. You're around like-minded people who think like you, and I firmly believe in that, but seeking that validation from other people isn't gonna bring you to where you need to be. So find that place where you can be alone and really be in tune with yourself. I know a lot of people resort to meditation, or maybe they just go on a walk, or maybe they're like me and be in another country crazily climbing a volcano to find who they really are. But find out what makes you happy and then just do it by yourself. And then I firmly believe in that. Find what makes you happy, do it by yourself, and you're going to find out what really brings the most joy and peace in your life. Because that's what it's all about. You got to be happy at the end of the day. You can't let the little things bother you. Because I have been on that hospital bed numerous times thinking, like, this may be the end. Like, I didn't care about what Susie Q said about me, like, yesterday, or what those people thought about me and what I was wearing. All I thought about is, like, am I truly happy? Am I truly happy with everything I've done? Have I lived a legacy, or have I left with a legacy or a mark on this world where I can say, Victoria was happy and Victoria lived a life that she loved? And I couldn't say that when I was sitting with my brain tumor. I lived a life for other people, not for myself.
By the way, I want to just tell you, before the show I came in, I'm dealing with some few hard things, business, family things. And I always just want to say thank you, because it always reminds me when I have a guest like yourself. It reminds me, it's like, okay, perspective, right? So, what's something about about where you're sitting today that you're deeply grateful for?
There's so many things I'm incredibly grateful for. I mean, I'm blessed to have this rebirth of life. I call myself Victoria 2.0 sometimes after the brain tumor and all the radiation, because I've had this new perspective on life, and I'm grateful to have this second opportunity to live, and live even greater than I was living before. But I have such deep gratitude for my family, and my mom and my dad and my brother, such hardworking people, and being able to have grown up in such a healthy environment, because I know a lot of my friends haven't been able to do that, or even my peers have had really rough family experiences, and sometimes I retreat and I'll think to myself wow, I'm really grateful that I grew up in such a healthy, happy home with two loving parents, and my brother is my best friend. And so I'm so deeply grateful for the family that the universe gave to me, because without them I would be a shell of who I am. But they really taught me strong values and instilled this sense of self in me. They constantly, my mom, I remember, constantly pushed affirmations into my head. Now I use it all the time and it works. And my dad, just seeing him as such a strong pillar of our family, and just seeing my family just be the center and the core of who I am, and they really support me no matter what. I'm so grateful for them.
And what's something about you that people don't know?
Well, a lot of people don't know I'm deaf in my right ear. So when they're talking to me and I'm out and about, they're like, wait, why aren't you hearing me? And sometimes my friends will be like, tell me. So my hearing aids will work on their own sometimes. So sometimes I'm wearing them, sometimes I'm not. But other than traveling, I mean, I grew up on a farm. Like, I love, like, a very simple life. Like, I don't need, a lot of people think, like, oh, you're high maintenance. I mean, maybe in certain aspects I am, but at the end of the day, it's not money or fame that drives me. It's just this happiness and this joy I find for life. I mean, I keep telling myself I kind of want to move to the Caribbean and just live off the ocean and the land there. Like, that being in the Caribbean for months on end, like, that made me just so happy, and it was very simple and just a beautiful thing. So seeing, like, you know, I'm in Miami, I'm in South Florida, you see everyone with all these, like, designer things and spending all this money here and there, and that doesn't bring me happiness. And I feel like a lot of people, they see me, they think I'm part of that lifestyle, but I may be here, but that's not, I may be here in this lifestyle, but it's not, I'm not of that lifestyle. I'm more of, like, I just have this appreciation for life, and my drive is just being happy at the end of the day, and being happy for myself, and sharing that light, and motivating others to, you know, be happy too. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's so true. I mean, turning on the news every day, it's just sadness, 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 and trying to be part of that movement of light.
Well, we're trying to make a difference here too. So each person, one by one, you know, you don't realize it, but the journey of 1,000 steps, 1,000 miles begins with one step. So
That's true.
I want to say thank you so much, and strength and happiness, health. How can people learn more about you and follow you on social?
Yeah, they can follow me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram, TikTok. I mean, sometimes on Facebook, more for family. But it's just all my name, like Victoria Vesce. Easy branding. You find me on YouTube. I have some podcasts on there and some of my travel blogs. And then Victoria Vesce Travels is, like, my travel blog where I talk a lot about, like, my individual travels. And I like to help people, like, plan their trips too, because I'm pretty type A and I find all the good deals.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Victoria. Next week, I'll chat with Greg Selko. Greg is the founder of the professional esports and entertainment company, Xset. He previously founded the streetwear e-commerce company, Karmaloop, has a master's degree from Harvard, and has served in the C-suite of numerous other companies as well. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we'd be grateful for a like, share, and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, feel free to leave a rating and review. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.